Let's go in the second reading. Anyways, after tonight. Okay,
I mean, we got time.
sure.
6:15.
You on?
6 o'clock.
I'd like to call this caucus meeting to order. As always, I'll be looking for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the first regular meeting dated Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, except prepared by the clerk. There is 2 pieces of communication. Does anybody have anything to say about our communication tonight? If not, the mayor's report. Mayor Miller.
Sure. I'm gonna skip the first one I have on there because I think Anthony's gonna talk about that in his report. Tire drive during the Struthers Build-A-Bed Day on Saturday, October 4th. We also will be having a tire recycling drive at the Struthers Street Garage from 9 to 10. Tires will be $1 each to dispose of, and please make sure there are no brims. Halloween house contest. To enter your house, please send an email to mayor@cityofstruthers.com and include 1 picture of your house before October 10th at 2 o'clock. All entries will be posted on the city Facebook page to vote on. The house must be in the City of Struthers School District. The Beirut Memorial. A memorial service will be held to commemorate the 42nd year of the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon on October 23rd, 1983. The service will be on Saturday, October 18th at 1 p.m. at the Beirut Peacekeepers Monument on Poland Avenue, and a candlelight service will also be held at 6 a.m. that morning. The public is invited to attend. Struthers City Schools Report Card. We would like to congratulate our Struthers City Schools for this year's report card exceeding state standards. The 4-star rating from the Ohio Department of Education is a direct reflection of the hard work, dedication, and commitment of the students, staff, and community. The Rotary Pancake Breakfast, the Struthers Rotary Annual Pancake Breakfast, will be held in the Struthers High School cafeteria on Sunday, November 2nd from 8 till 1. It's $8 per adult and $5 per child. And then we have a bunch of different reminders that we've had in the last couple mayor's reports posted on social media regarding the Struthers 5th Quarter, the Placo Center Flea Market, Struthers Build-A-Bed that's coming up on October 4th, Light City Church, and their community dinners, and the Struthers FOP fundraiser. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Any questions or comments to our mayor about her report? If none, report of standing committees.
Yeah, I'm gonna call police and fire, next Wednesday at 6 o'clock to discuss some, legislation that we wanna go with on directing, with, police officers directing traffic.
Any other committees?
Finance and legislation to follow, go over pending legislation.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, I'm going to legislation. First 2 pieces are ordinances, second readings. Number 3 is an emergency action ordinance, and we got a first reading of an ordinance. Number 4 is a first reading. Questions or comments on legislation? Unfinished business. New business. Report of a law director. John, do you have anything for council tonight? I do not. Questions or comments for law director? Our auditor is absent. Anthony, do you have anything for council tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on this resurfacing. So last week, so the 22nd on Monday, we were supposed to start our resurfacing. Last Thursday, I got an email. It was explaining that Aqua Ohio is doing some utility projects, and it's going to be potholing in the yards, and for lead and galvanized lines, they're going to be replacing your service from the water line that goes from your house. And if it's an Aqua issue, they would be doing it in the street. So they notified us, and 2 of the streets that were getting resurfaced were on that project. They'd be recutting into our roads, and that was causing an issue of our resurfacing, that if we were going to do Creed and West Lewis, we didn't want them to come in and just re-tear up Creed and West Lewis right after we just resurfaced them. And then when we were meeting with Lindy Paving and also Rudzik Excavating, we were made aware of Bob Scene Way, that Astro Shapes has to put a fire suppressant line system in that would cut across our roadway, that we're also going to do our pavement in our cement area. And then the Bob Scene Fields got to do a water irrigation system for their fields. So there's 2 cuts that they were going to do in the road there. So that's why I invited Zach also from MS just to go over it a little bit. But pretty much it would cost us more money if we were just going to do 2 of the roads Lincoln and, Elm Court and push the rest off to 2026. So that's why we decided we're gonna push everything to 2026. It's not gonna cost us anything. We're still gonna get the OPWC money, none of that's gonna change, all that's gonna be the same. We just didn't wanna resurface of new roads and just tear up half of our projects that we're doing.
How does that affect our funding for next year then? We'll still be in the running for
Yeah.
roads to be paved.
This will
For
be
next
done
year.
early spring, so
Okay.
we're thinking March,
As soon as they're allowed
March-ish.
to.
Yeah, weather permitting.
Does the cost go up?
Yeah.
Slightly, that's what we're gonna
You want me to,
Yeah, if you wanna intervene a little bit.
Zach Tier with MS Consultants, I was the design engineer on the project, helping out the city of Struthers. So thank you for the, little bit of an introduction on what this issue that we had. So during this meeting, they got the notification Thursday, Friday we went with, like we said, we called the emergency meeting, met with, MS, Lindy, and Rudzik. So we had Lindy who's doing the resurfacing and Rudzik who's doing the lead service line replacement. So we sort of had two contractors, one, Lindy, who's gonna tell us what's the impact on all these projects, and then we have a buffer with Rudzik that has really nothing to do with the resurfacing, but can almost verify the information in real time. So it was good to have them all in one room. So what we did was we discussed three separate options. Option one was, hey, we're just gonna do what we're doing and we don't care about this lead surface flat project, which of course we do. But with that said, it would potentially save you, the cost would still be maintained at what it is now. However, you'd only have your roads for a few months, and then when they come in November and December to do any of the lead surface lines, they're just gonna rip them up and
Dig them up,
replace where the lead service lines are gonna be, so you're gonna have what we call zebra stripes all throughout your brand new road, and I don't think anybody wants to see that.
No.
So he said option one really isn't an option. So let's discuss option two. And so option two was, okay, let's look at just resurfacing Elm Court and resurfacing Lincoln. So if we did that this year, and then we push the other ones off till next year, let Aqua Ohio do what they have to do, so we don't have to worry about the impacts of the roads, and what's the advantages and disadvantages? So the advantages are, well, you can maintain the cost for about 20% of the project as it is now by resurfacing just Lincoln and Elm. So 20%, however, when they come back next year, the adjustments that would need to be made would be the adjustment based on what the cost of asphalt would be at that time, because it does change, so there would be a cost adjustment that would come in, as well as a second mobilization on top of that. Now, we said, okay, so we said, well, what are those costs? They said, well, we can't tell you what the cost of asphalt's gonna be, we don't have a crystal ball.
So if we move them all next year, the cost of the asphalt, we're not locked into this price then?
So what would happen is, and I'll get to that, it's a very good question, but I'll get to it. So we have those are the two costs. Mobilization, I said, well, what would be more of an impact to the project? You guys, you can't give me cost, but what's gonna impact it? Lindy, tell me. So Lindy told us, they said, mobilization is definitely gonna impact it more than the cost adjustment for the materials. And then I looked at Rudzik and I said, well, we looked at Rudzik, we said, well, is that right? You guys have nothing to do with this project, you have no skin in this game. They said, yeah, that's 100% true. Mobilization, to take all of your crews for 80% of the project and bring it in next year is going to cost you way more to do it twice than to do it just once. So we said, okay, well then maybe the third option would be to go back and to just do everything early next year. Save ourselves some cost with no impact to the funding or the future application that we're just put in, that we just submitted this month. And then the other thing would be is, we also have a buffer where we put in, when we do our bids, we put in as needed by the engineer. So when you resurface these roads, you take off the 1.5 inches, you don't know what's underneath. So we like to put in partial and full depth repair. As well as on Bob's scene, we said, there was also some pipe replacement and some, driveway approaches, because we're gonna be doing concrete, just to make everything so those trucks don't beat up that driveway and it's gone in the first day. So those are some of the alternatives as directed by the engineer that if the price comes back next year and it is substantially higher, we can always take off those items, and those items are about $120,665. So we do have a pretty decent buffer to pull back the project if it gets too expensive to not perform. Now, we'll have to wait. Our plan is hopefully February, start talking with Lindy, keep an open dialogue with them. And hopefully in February, we talk with Lindy, we say, okay, project's probably gonna be getting ready to start in March. Can you guys please give us that adjusted cost? Once we get all their costs, we can then non-perform any items that, to stay within the budget of both of those funding through OPWC.
And who decides those items?
Those items would be decided through, so typically I would go in and say, here's my recommendations, and then give it to the city, and then you guys can decide what needs to be done.
So
Is
there's
that
a couple
councilmatic
things.
action for that, or?
No,
Okay.
no.
So there's a couple of things, so when we talk about the striping, they said anywhere between 20 to 55 cuts in Creed alone.
Yeah.
So this isn't just like a couple cuts, a couple strikes, this would be a significant, it would
It's
look
gonna be
bad.
every 10 to
Yeah,
20.
okay.
And then there was another,
Another meeting today.
on Creed, there was a part of Creed that we had concreted in, and
Yes.
that we aren't concreting back. The only reason we concreted that little section there was we talked to Frank DeMarco and he said the road was just that bad when they did it, so they had to use concrete. We don't have to use concrete, we're using asphalt, so we have a little bit of savings and cushion there that we can use for that loss of production
Which would be
going
included in
forward.
that.
So we're hoping to still be within budget, but doing the two streets like we talked about, I think it was like a $75,000
If not more.
increase just to do mobilization twice, which is a huge
Yeah.
cost. So
They're negotiable.
an
So-
unfortunate situation, but we don't want the roads to look
Right.
bad.
Right.
Sometimes they said asphalt's a little cheaper too if they order all in bulk. When
Yeah.
they do every street at one time, then 2 streets and then
Yeah,
next year
right.
3.
Yeah, there's also that cost savings.
So are you gonna put in for the rest of Lincoln all the
We
way?
already did, so we
That's
already
already
put
been
in,
submitted.
that was what we talked about, we already submitted for Grim Heights, Eve, the rest of Creed from
Creed.
Argonne to, Pullen Avenue, and Lincoln from 9th to Youngstown Pullen Road. This, like we talked about a million times, it's all a scoring rubric, and he presented, to OPWC Thursday? No, yesterday.
Yesterday.
So that application is in. So essentially, next year, the calendar year of 26, the whole street would be getting done. Not at the same time, but it will be, and that will, going forward, if we decide to do ceiling and
Yeah.
things like that, it'll just be
Mhm.
better. So it's unfortunate, but Anthony already called a couple meetings, we have another meeting today, with Aqua, so that we're ahead of this, so we're not running into these problems. So they have our forecasted next 5 years of streets based on the street assessments.
Yeah, we're just
And
giving
we
you the
have
street
their,
assessment.
we know what they're potholing too, so they're not ripping up brand new streets and we're not wasting money on both ends.
Mhm.
So we'll be ahead of it. We just have never had this issue of potholing.
Well, the lead surface lines was never, it wasn't a thing until recently, like within the last year or two, where the last year everyone was trying to figure out setting up your inventory with all your water lines and the materials of all of it, and then this year, it's, if you get the funding, which Aqua did, they are now able to go through and actually replace those lines. So it's a very crazy time for water infrastructure, I'll tell you that much, which then affects this, but the other thing that we talked about today with Bob C and with Astro Shapes and with Aqua was the fire suppression that Anthony talked about and that irrigation line. They're gonna be pretty much right in concrete, so we said, we don't want you to go in, we don't wanna do this concrete and you guys come in and, we need to know, are you guys gonna be able to get it done by the end of this year? Because we don't wanna go into March and then have to delay this project again, and delay it, it's not happening. So what we did was we advocated, we said, well, what can we do now? And what we came up with was, they can do everything underneath the roadway now, before we go in next year by the end of the year, and they can just stub it out at their properties. Aqua said, yep, you can do that, that's fine, and then they can come back and they can do everything on their property, so it doesn't impact the road, and they have everything done before we come in next March and do everything, so.
So did Aqua hear from the railroad?
Yes, so we actually had a meeting with Ruli's office and they came in and they said, is there anything we can help you with? And we said, yeah, can you push this permit along? So we've been on the phone with people from his office and him, and he was able to get a hold of someone, and in the portal, they were able to go ahead and approve that. But now they're requiring that, is it SET?
Yeah.
SET be there and ready to go in 48 hours, and that's not attainable. So now they're gonna go back and into the portal and get an exact time frame, and then go back to the railroad, which we're gonna call again and say this is where we're at and push it along. From what I understand, they're hoping to get everything done by the end of the year. But we have some movement now.
There is some, is it production loss?
That would be included as, yeah, so the production loss is pretty much, they wrote that in with the material asphalt, it's like the big part of it. So there would be a little bit extra cost with the production loss, because the way that the contract works is the way we set it up at least. Now, you can set it up 100 different ways. This contract was set up, and it's like every other typical asphalt resurfacing is 60 days. So if the contractor does not, this holds true for both sides. It either holds the contractor's feet to the fire, say you got 60 days to finish it, or we can charge you a penalty each day that you're over. So that's the advantage of the city. Or on the back end, if it's because of a utility or because there's a delay with the city, then the contractor then can say, well, that's not fair for us to hold this price and this project doesn't happen for another 5 years, but we're still in 2025 prices. So they are eligible to be compensated for production loss.
Do we know what that cost
They
is?
haven't come back with me to that cost, it's been too early, but that's going to be part of our talks as we move forward with this project.
Okay,
But those, to me, it will be an additional cost, but it's not gonna be anything near what a second mobilization would be.
What are your thoughts on how much the city will be on the line for?
How much? Well, so.
Any idea? I know a lot of it has to be done, but you know, don't
Yeah,
wanna be
so
surprised either.
essentially the way that we set it up with OPWC is we're planning to stay underneath those budgets.
Okay.
So we would still be for the grant, it was 61% of the grant, I believe, it was close to that. It was, I don't have it off the top of my head, but
Okay.
around that would be the local match. So we would still be getting that 30%, no matter what the project cost is, as long as it's under that amount, 60% of that would be paid for by the city. And then the other one's the 0% OPWC loan over the course of the project, so. That one is paid for upfront by OPWC, but then you guys would then incur the loan after the
Right.
project's over. And then that payment process usually is January 1st or July 1st, depending on when your project is done. So you would be looking at next year, July 1st, of beginning payments on that. Is there any other questions that you guys have?
Anthony, anything else?
That's all.
Well, I'll make a comment on Creed. I was home this week and Rudzik and Aqua trucks were there. They did a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, in the rain, they did their job and my yard looks like they didn't even touch it.
And we're gonna
So-
make, not to interrupt you, but
No, but I'm just saying, it was,
Creed, Lincoln, all these streets that we're gonna resurface, we're gonna make sure we go out and repatch and do a good job with that. Our guys already do, but hit them a couple more times
but I was real
before.
impressed because I went outside and I was looking at everything and they did, and like I said, they worked in
It
the rain.
looks like they're not
the
even
rain-
there sometimes.
No, it looked like they weren't even there, so.
Hey, Anthony, what are the Vector trucks from Rudzik doing along the streets? What are?
That is
That's-
part
Oh,
of the
that's the
project.
project, gotcha.
So it's a way for them to go into the yard and also not damage any kind of pipes when they're digging,
Gotcha,
so.
gotcha. Any other questions for our safety rep? Motion adjourned, Caucus.
Motion.
second.